Look at yourself, Orestes. Look closely. This is not just skin that has sagged like old parchment. This is a chronicle. Each of these lines is a trench that I dug to keep the enemy out. Who am I? Victor thinks I am a fragile glass vase that needs to be put on a shelf and covered with a cap to keep dust out. To the state, I am a number in statistics, an elderly person, a pensioner, a unit that has lingered in this world too long. But they are all wrong. Inside this worn-out frame, under these fragile ribs, still lives the same boy who, in 48, ran barefoot across the hot asphalt of rebuilt Kiev. I am an engineer, not by profession, but by nature. I am used to knowing how the world works. I know how a bridge holds up, how a turbine works, and I know how willpower works. I am a man who has never taken anything for granted. My father taught me, if you haven't earned your lunch, you haven't earned it. If you haven't won your day, you haven't lived it. And I do. Every damn morning. My hands. Look at them. They know the taste of fuel oil, concrete, and blood. They held baby Victor, and they hammered nails into my Martha's coffin. They betray me now. They tremble like leaves in the wind, but I make them obey. I don't live. I am in a state of constant, exhausting expedition into the territory of death, and I return every day with trophies, a page read, a clean plate, a step taken. Am I selfish? Maybe. I love my freedom more than the peace of my children, because freedom is the only currency that has value at my age. If I let them take the keys to this house from me, they will take the keys to my soul from me. They will lock me in a sterile paradise where I will not have to fight. And without a fight, I will crumble to dust in a week. I am an old wolf who knows that the pack wants to send him into exile so that he will not see his weakness. But I am not weak. My weakness is only an illusion to those who see only the surface. My true strength is in my refusal to be pitiful. I hate pity. Pity is sand and bearings. It kills faster than cancer. Do not pity me. Argue with me. Be angry with me. Demand answers from me. Just do not look at me as if I were already dead. I am Orestes. I am still standing on my feet. I still breathe this dust and this memory. And if tomorrow is my last day, then it will be my day. I will choose the color of my shirt and my last thought before the lights go out. I am not a passenger on this train. I am the driver, and I will not let go of the lever until the boiler explodes. You know, memory is a strange thing. It erases wedding dates, but it imprints smells forever. I can still smell that sweet sour aroma of state care that greeted me in the corridor of the Golden Autumn nursing home 30 years ago. The name is a complete mockery. The autumn there was not golden, but gray, like a washed sheet. It smelled of bleach, with which they tried to wash away not dirt, but the very human presence. It smelled of drugs that suppressed the will and of overcooked cabbage, which seemed to be a symbol of culinary degradation. But the worst was the smell of regret. When I saw my mother, Anna, I did not recognize her eyes. She was a woman who drove a locomotive during the war, who raised 3 sons during the famine years, who could silence an entire line with her gaze. And there, she sat in a chair, her gaze directed nowhere. She became an object of care, a number in a pill-dispensing journal. That's when I realized, old age is not about wrinkles. It's when strangers make your schedule, when you're told when the sun has risen for you and when it should set. I got out of there, got into my old Volga, and my hands gripped the steering wheel so tightly that my knuckles turned white. I said to myself, Orest, you will die in your bed, under your own roof, even if you have to gnaw at the walls for your freedom. It became my religion. Every morning, at 6:30, my personal Stalingrad begins. Gravity at 91 is not a physical law. It is a predatory animal that grows heavier at night. It presses on my chest, constricts my lower back. As if pouring hot lead into my muscles. I lie for a minute, listening to my heart, trying to push blood through the main arteries of my veins, which already resemble worn-out water pipes. The first movement is the hardest. To lower my legs off the bed. You know how it is when the floor seems like a distant horizon? But I do it. My feet touch the cold wood. I deliberately do not cover the floor with carpets so that I can feel reality with every nerve. I walk to the kitchen. Every step is a calculation. Center of gravity, hip tension, knee control. I don't just walk. I conquer entropy. I gave up my cane at home. A cane is the first step to a walker to a wheelchair, a wheelchair to oblivion. My furniture is my exercise equipment. I lean on the oak table that Marta and I chose in Kosovo. It is sturdy, it remembers the warmth of her hands, it holds me. Then I go outside. My walk around the block is a protest march. The neighbors look at me like I'm weird. "Mr. Orestes, let me drive you to the store," says the young guy from the third entrance. He is kind. He doesn't understand. I smile and refuse. Because if I don't get to the store by myself today, I won't be able to get to the bathroom tomorrow. Every step that hurts is proof that I'm still alive. The body is a machine that needs to be kept running at high speed, otherwise the engine will stall. I carry a bag of milk and bread like the Olympic flame. It is the weight of my independence. My brain is the last bastion where I am still a young design engineer. I know how it works. As soon as you turn off curiosity, your neural connection falls apart like an old radio that I don't watch TV. TV is chewing gum for those who have already given up. Instead, I open the newspaper. I read about quantum computers, about the colonization of Mars, about new tax reforms. I don't understand half of it, and that's great. It makes me dig into dictionaries, look up the meaning of words, argue with the authors of the articles in my head. And then there's Spanish. Why Spanish? Because it sounds like the sunshine I miss in November. When I try to say La libertad es el derecho a elegir, freedom is the right to choose, my tongue gets tangled, but my brain is working at full capacity. This is my defense against being considered a nice grandpa. I don't want to be spoken to slowly and clearly, like a 5-year-old. I want to be argued with. When my grandson Marco comes over, I deliberately provoke him into a discussion about architecture or artificial intelligence. I see irritation in his eyes, and then respect. This is my trophy. As long as I can ask a question that the young don't have an immediate answer to, I remain a player, not a piece that has been removed from the board. Loneliness at 91 is not just the absence of people around you. It is a physical sensation, as if you are in a spacesuit at the bottom of the ocean. You see life through thick glass. You see flocks of young, active, noisy people swimming by, but their sounds do not reach you. When Marta left, that was 20 years ago. You know, they say that with time it gets easier. A lie. Time simply teaches you to live with this hole in your chest, like a chronic ulcer. For the first 3 years, I hardly left the house. I talked to her dressing gown, which still smelled of red Moscow and lavender. I could sit in an armchair for hours, watching the sun bunny crawl across the carpet, and waiting for the evening to finally come, to turn off the lights and cease to exist. But one day I looked in the mirror and saw not myself, but a shadow. I understood. Silence is a predator. If you let it settle in your rooms, it will start eating your memories, your language, your personality. Then I introduced my law of the daily voice. Every single day, I must say at least 100 words to another living person. Not to a TV, not to a cat, but to a person. And these words should not be, "Give me a loaf of bread." No, this should be a dialogue that I became an awkward old man. I come to the library, the same one where my mother once worked, and start asking the young librarian about the new arrivals. I see how she tenses at first, how she wants to get rid of me as soon as possible. But I don't give up. I insert my remarks. I remember how I read Hemingway in the first translations. I become real to her. I become a speck in their fluid, digital life. Every Friday, I play chess in the park. My opponents are the same dinosaurs as me. We argue until we are hoarse, not about the move of a horse, but about whether the old town hall was restored correctly. We shout at each other, splash saliva, and in these moments we are the most alive creatures on the planet. We fight against oblivion, because if you don't insert yourself into the lives of others, you simply dissolve in the ether. The opposite of love is not hate. It is when there is no one to remember you with anger or with a smile. Now about what young people call depressive, and I call logical. I am an engineer. I am used to calculating the load on beams and knowing the critical point of metal fracture. The human body is the same mechanism. It would be the height of arrogance to think that I will run forever like a mountain goat. When I turned 75, I arranged for myself a vulnerability audit. I walked around the house with a notebook and a tape measure. "Here," I said to myself, looking at the high threshold in the bathroom, "you will trip and break your head one day." And here, I looked at the slippery tiles. "Your feet will go in different directions, like on a skating rink. I did not expect to fall. I prepared the battlefield while I had the resources. I installed the stainless steel railings myself. I didn't buy them at the pharmacy, where they look like part of a hospital bed, but at yacht stores. They are stylish, sturdy, and remind me of traveling. I opened the door wider. Marco laughed then. "Grandpa, why do you need such a gate to the toilet?" I replied, "It's not a gate. It's an insurance for my dignity in case I need a walker." And then I wrote my red folder. It's in the second drawer of the desk. It's not just a will about who gets my record collection. It's my rules of the game. It clearly states what to do if I stop recognizing faces, what to do with my body, what medications I allow to be administered, and which ones I don't. This is the ultimate manifestation of my independence. I don't leave the burden of moral choice to my children. I don't want Victor or Marco to be tormented in the hospital corridor in the middle of the night with the question, what would Dad want? Should he be kept on life support? I have already answered these questions. I have lifted this burden from their shoulders and reserved for myself the last right. The right to the final chord. It is not the fear of death. Death is just the last line on the budget. It is the fear of losing the right to be the author of your own story. I sit here, under my lamp, and every detail in this room, from the doorknob to the file on the desk, is my victory over circumstances. I am 91, and I am still the captain of this ship, even if it has long since given way. The sun sets behind the rooftops of the neighboring 5-story buildings. I turn off the Spanish radio. My joints buzz as if a swarm of angry bees has settled in them. But I get up. Alone. I go to the window and look at my reflection in the glass. There are deep furrows, gray hair that resembles ash. But my eyes are the same as they were in '65. I take a deep breath. My lungs expand with a creak, but they work. I am alive. Not by inertia, but by plan. Orestes. Voice becomes quieter, but firm. Tomorrow I will wake up again at 6:30. I will make these legs walk again. I will learn 3 new Spanish words again. Because life is a verb. And as long as I can conjugate it, I am not old. I'm just a very experienced fighter on a battlefield where no one has ever won. But many have given up without a fight. And I'm not one to give up. Have you seen Victor? My son. My pride. A man in his 50s, managing hundreds of people in his company, but who becomes a little boy every time he crosses the threshold of this house. Today, he came again. He came not as a son, but as an inspector. His eyes, they no longer look at me. They scan the space. He looks for dust on the shelves. He checks if I forgot to turn off the gas. He sniffs to see if I smell sick. He looks for evidence of my defeat. He began this conversation as if he were reading a sentence. "Dad, we have to be realistic." Oh, how I hate that word, realistic. For him, being realistic means giving up. He thrust at me brochures for this boarding house of his. Bright pictures where old people smile so fakely, as if they have their grandchildren at gunpoint behind the scenes. "It's safe there, Dad." Did you hear that? Safe. I looked at him and saw him trembling. He was afraid. Not for me. He was afraid of me leaving. He was afraid of the moment when I would stop being his shield from the inevitable. As long as I was here, in this chair, as long as I was grumbling and teaching him how to live, he was still a child. As soon as I went to Zlagoda, he would be next in line to die. And he wrapped this fear in the wrapper of worry. I told him, "Victor, you want to trade my freedom for protection. You want me to live longer, but at the same time, you stop being human." He was screaming. He said I was selfish. That Marco, my grandson, couldn't sleep because he was afraid I would fall in the toilet and lie there for 3 days. And you know what the scariest thing is? He was right. It could happen. I might not get up tomorrow, but I would rather lie on my floor for 3 days, staring at the cracks in the ceiling that I once covered up than spend 10 years in a room where I didn't even choose the color of the curtains. We argued for an hour. His coffee was cold, and my heart, it was beating like it wanted to pierce my ribs. I could see love and irritation fighting inside him. He wants to be a good son. He wants to do his duty. But he doesn't understand that my greatest duty to him is to show him how to walk. Not hunched over, not apologizing for my existence, but with my head held high. When he left, slamming the door, the house became so quiet that I could hear the clock in the hallway ticking. Tick-tock, tick-tock. Victor's time and my time are 2 different dimensions. He runs to capture it all, and I stand to feel it all. He thinks I don't love him because I don't obey. and I love him enough to not let him be my jailer. The hardest thing at 91 is protecting your child from his own desire to save you, that I'm not selfish. I'm just the last one who remembers who the man was who taught him how to hold a hammer. And I won't let that man disappear into the corridors that smell of bleach, even if Victor never forgives me for it.